Let's get into the Wednesday wrangle now, and welcome from GT Media, Liz Storer, and from the Herald Sun and elsewhere, Justin Smith. Got to start with you, Justin. Honestly, these revelations today about the people in charge of hotel quarantine in Victoria not actually adhering to the rules. What more does Victoria need to go through before they learn to do this right?
Well, it does. If anything can make you speechless in this world, it is the way that the quarantine system has been handled in Victoria. And you only think you've heard everything, and then something brand new, like the revelations that have come out today. I don't think they'd ever be able to get it right. The people that handled the quarantine system should never be allowed to ever work again. You know, maybe we can get them working in some service stations or cleaning up rubbish in parks or something, but I think that would be about the end of it. I don't think that they should be holding a job down anywhere. I just think it's extraordinary. As I said, very few things make me totally speechless, but when you talk about quarantine in Victoria, you don't even know where to start. It's that bad and tragic because we've had hundreds of people die as a result. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and millions of people put through enormous hardship. I mean, the idea that a bloke in charge of infection control walks out and is told you've got to have a mandatory COVID test, says, no, not for me. I'm above all this. So
I know.
It's just incredible.
I know.
It's just incredible. Liz, Liz, I want to go to something from your home state too, in Western Australia. We talked yesterday about the state governments clinging to all their emergency powers and how in the governor's speech last week, the McGowan government had flagged that he was going to do that. We learned today that he's putting in legislation, Mark McGowan, to hang on to his emergency powers into next year, into 2022. Here's the Premier of Western Australia.
And that gives the powers to put in place hotel quarantine, to put in place border arrangements, to have the powers to enforce mask wearing, those sorts of things. So they're extraordinary powers. They're unusual. They're not the sort of thing you normally do. But as we know, over the course of the last year, we've had to do these sorts of things. So that legislation being renewed is very important to give the authorities the power to do the things that we do.
Liz, they've got no community transmission. There's a vaccine being rolled out. I mean, if they have to hang on to these powers, maybe roll it over a month at a time, a quarter at a time, but already hanging on to it into next year.
Yeah, zero surprise here, Chris. This man has won by such a massive majority, and so recently I think he could get away with anything right now. Every time I hear this guy open his mouth, I'm reminded of George Orwell's writing so many years ago that no one takes power with the intention to relinquish it. This Premier, out of the lot of them, has been the embodiment of that over this entire COVID period. And WA has now made its bed for 4 years and they've got a lie in it. But what never ceases to surprise me, Chris, is it seems to be largely crickets from them. The West seem to be pretty happy with this guy as he is with his fiefdom. It takes my breath away.
Well, what staggers me is the Liberal opposition, as they, in the lead up to the election, they're too timid to criticise this stuff. They know it's popular, so even on a rational basis, they won't criticise it. I want to get to your thoughts, both of you. I'll start with you, Justin, on this national curriculum plan and the ditching of some of the old history and the embellishment of Indigenous history in all parts of the curriculum. Is this political correctness gone too far?
Yeah, it is, because I think it just shouldn't be. This is something that's always amazed me. It should never be that hard to tell the truth. Every culture has got things right, every culture has got things wrong. But telling the truth, if you talk to a real historian about something, all they're interested in are the facts, telling the truth, what the implications were, how it worked, how it changed the world. And a lot of these things are not up for dispute. I just don't know why it's so bloody hard sometimes for us just to be able to teach people the truth.
And Liz, in some schools in Victoria, probably elsewhere for all we know, I've had the white boys stand up and basically be told that they wear the shame of all the bad things that have happened in human history. This is racist, sexist shaming of boys at school.
100%, Chris. And look, there's this outcry of changing the curriculum to teach kids that Australia was invaded, etc. and so on. But the truth of the matter is, stuff like this has been going on behind the scenes in our education systems for years. Every now and then it graces our headlines because there's been an overreach, and so we're made aware of it. But we actually don't know what is going on a daily basis in our schools. The curriculum is finally, I would say, just getting a bit honest here in terms of going, well, let's formalise this and therefore bringing it to our attentions. But sadly, we see this happening across the West, in the US, in Britain. Kids from a very young age now are being taught to despise their own heritage, to embrace white guilt. Movements like Black Lives Matter are thriving. It's working on both ends of the spectrum. And here we see it getting to kids really young. Things like nationalism, patriotism, they don't get a mention in our Western countries anymore. They are frowned upon. People are literally being brainwashed into oppressing themselves in a sense.
Who would have known how prescient Pink Floyd were with "We don't need no education, we don't need no thought control"? Look, we've done some heavy issues and some of the deadly challenges for the country. I want to get your thoughts briefly each on the classic embodiment of a first world problem here in one of the wealthier suburbs or areas of Sydney, the Mosman Daily. Let's have a look at the front cover of this suburban giveaway. I think it's a News Corp publication, the Mosman Daily, a woman there with her pooch, and it's the puppy pandemic. Local dogs who have had us at home during the lockdown are now suffering as we're returning to work. Any sympathy from you, Justin?
Look, listen. I've got a couple of spoilt dogs, and my wife has been working at home during this whole thing, and she went into work for the first time for a day last week, and you should have seen the look on the dogs' faces. It was sort of this.
Dear. You are a dog lover. What about you, Liz? Do you have sympathy for the dogs who now have to live without their owners?
Oh, look, I can't quite summon it, not when we've got situations like India unfolding. I'm sorry. All my mercy is being spent on my own species at the moment, Chris.
Yeah, spot on. Well said, Liz. Thanks for joining us again, Liz Storer and Justin Smith.